right, welcome back to the Dirt Road.
Hey, Mike.
Rick. That's Rick.
And that's Mike.
We are
And
back.
Tell them about that thing back there.
That's our hidden farm. It's hidden in New York City. You'll never find it. It's magical. Hidden.
Best farm in the New York City area. Love it. Anyway, Mike, I was reading the newspaper today. I came across an article I thought was really, really interesting. I'm just going to read the first couple of paragraphs out loud for the viewers so they know what we're going to talk about today. It says, when Becca and Jordan Itkowitz moved back to LaGrange, Illinois after 3 years in Denmark with their sons Evan 8, Max 10, they only mentioned two of the sons, they experienced culture shock. Becca received a call from the school that Max had thrown a snowball during recess. She quotes, "Not at anyone, mind you," Becca told the Post, "just throwing a snowball because it's fun, and he's a kid. I laughed at the principal and agreed to talk to him about American school rules and how snow can be perceived as a quote-unquote weapon." Apparently, that's what the principal told her, is that snowballs are weapons. Max was also chastised for picking up a stick. The lady says, in Denmark, picking up sticks was always a way to build a fort or just play. That stood in stark contrast to what they had experienced in Denmark, where their children in kindergarten are given by American norms enormous latitudes. She goes on to say they have the opportunity to play in the rain, cook over fires, and are able to take safe and appropriate risks. Then they go to mention a book that I have not read, but I'm going to. I'm going to go to the library and get this, called The Danish Secrets to Happy Kids. And apparently in Denmark, they have no problem letting their kids go out and play. They're not the helicopter parents we are, and their schools don't consider snow to be a weapon. Now, having worked in the New York City public schools for 32 years, I feel this lady's pain. I've experienced things like this before, but you, unlike me, still have two young kids. You have two older ones, like I have older ones, but you have two young ones that you're raising. So I was interested in your thoughts on that little scene there.
That is absolutely the reality of American schools today, right? We both know. So I have two kids in elementary school right now, and it is absolutely insane. You know, you have the helicopter parents that we talked about. You know, everything is an issue, right? Everything is an issue. All right, last year, and I think it was in Jack's school, that they were talking about some kid made a finger gun during recess.
That's suspension.
You know, and this was a big deal, and I'm like, they're playing. They're kids. This is what kids do. You know, it's honestly, I kind of have to say, like, I think we've gone backwards in the way we parent, right? Without a doubt, backwards. When we grew up, me and you, right, it was, you went out, and you came home when the streetlights came on. That was basically the rules. That was how it basically went. My father was very overprotective, but you went out, and you did what you had to do.
Sure. You
got into fist fights, you got into scrapes and stuffles, you fell out of a tree when you were climbing. But you went out and you had adventures, and you learned to kind of
and breaking a bone was almost like a rite of passage.
Yeah, it was kind of cool, right? You come back to school, everybody would sign the cast or whatever. Listen, we learned when we weren't these soft, coddled, entitled people that you see now. You have a whole generation now that's becoming adults that were so coddled and so like insulated that they can't even stand to hear things they don't like because it's words are violence. Like no, they're not. No. They're not.
And neither is a finger gun. And I'm a little older than you, so I don't know if you had this when you were little, but we played with cap guns.
Yeah.
And we
had the cap guns, yeah.
And remember they had the round...
The red, yep.
And you'd pull the trigger and it would pop, and it gave off that sulfur smell.
Oh, yeah, I love that.
And it made a pop. And we had the holsters, and we would run around and play cowboys and Indians or cops and robbers or whatever and shooting those things. Nobody blinked a damn eye, and none of us, to my knowledge anyway, became mass murderers.
No. Anybody I killed had it coming, so that's a different animal completely. No, look, I mean, they talk about this leads to violence and everything else, but here's the thing: look at past generations, right? I mean, your generation, even prior to that, in a lot of parts of the country, they brought guns to school in their trucks. They would drive around with a gun in their truck all the time. That was normal, And there wasn't school shootings, there wasn't all these things. Now all of a sudden, we've done this coddling and this helicopter parent thing. And we're seeing generation of school shooters and mass shooters and just these completely broken people. And
mental illness. And that's why I don't understand why we still go in this direction. This generation of children now, this is fact, this is not just opinion, right? This is quoted out there all the time, has more mental illness, more depression,
anxiety,
So obviously we're doing something wrong with our children. So
Sure.
why do we continue along this path? I'm not saying that the way we were raised was perfect, or that kids have to be running around with cap guns. That's not my point.
Cap guns are good. Give it to them.
The cap guns were fun, you know. And so was my little Evil Knievel that you wound up and,
It was
jumped
great.
off the
Yeah,
ramp,
yeah.
you know. But those things, they fostered playing, right? I mean, you had to play with other people. You weren't just sitting there on a tablet or something. And again, we can't go back. We can't take away technology. Kids are going to be kids. But the way, obviously, we're doing something wrong with our youth.
I think you nailed it, Doug.
They're not reading at grade level.
No.
They're not doing math at grade level.
No.
They're suffering anxiety and depression more than any past group of kids did. So if that's the result, or those are the results, why in the hell do we continue along the same path?
Because people just follow along. They get into that rut, right? So think about you in your daily life. You have your regular routine and you stick to your routine. And if that's become your routine because that's what you were taught, then that's what you're going to keep doing. So it takes like that conscious effort and thought, like breaking any habit. It takes a conscious effort and thought to break yourself out of that routine. Listen, I want the kids to go out and play in the mud and the rain and the snow and the heat and everything else. I want them to go out and experience the world. I want them to learn to be strong and to problem solve and to resolve issues and resolve even conflict if they need to.
And they mentioned that in the article, by the way. You said playing in rain.
Yeah.
That was one of the specific things that they said, that in other countries, they don't have this. You can't go outside because it's raining.
Oh, no, go jump in puddles.
And you wear appropriate clothes. Whatever the weather is, you wear those clothes.
Yeah.
You go out and you play. You go out and you play in the snow. You play in the rain. And it's just... But again, like I said, I can't understand why, when we have such empirical data, and we know that the last generation, at least the last generation of children are so messed up.
Yeah.
And so uneducated.
Well, because look at what schools push a lot now, and it's on school boards, right? We see Moms for Liberty and other groups being, vilified as these hate groups and everything, when all they're really asking for is, hey, we don't want pornography taught to our elementary school kids, We don't need pornographic books in schools. We don't need drag queen story hour in schools. It's ridiculous. But they're not wrong. They don't need that because you're basically teaching them immoral things and things that go against that family dynamic. I agree. I just think it's awful. But I think that the focus in schools now is not so much about actually educating and teaching kids to problem solve and do those things. It's more about teaching them these little elements of things that they want, the LGBT mafia crap or whatever else. It's like an indoctrination machine rather than actually an education machine.
But even for the people out there who would disagree with you and say it's not immoral, right? Why confuse children? So why make children more anxious, worried about now what gender they are when they don't even understand that stuff yet? We're putting all these things into their head, making them more confused. Look, even when it comes to things like climate change, why? All right, let's put it like this: you have a little girl. If she came to you and said, "Daddy, there's a monster in the closet," what would you tell her?
There's no monster, and I would show her. But I would tell her it's okay, you can be brave, and we would go check the closet. And
right, or you'd say, if there is a monster, Daddy's going to get it for you, right? You would try to calm her down. You wouldn't make her more fearful.
Yeah.
But we are constantly telling children now that there's a monster in their closet, that the climate is changing, and if they don't do something, their generation has to. Yeah, but their generation has to solve this. We tell this to kids. I mean, I've seen this over and over again. That your generation is going to be responsible to solve this problem. These are children. Don't tell them the world's going to end. You tell them there's no monster in the closet. They've got plenty of time when they're older to face the world's realities.
So, I think that what we're seeing right now is the result of politics bleeding over into every other aspect of life, right? So for me and you in the 80s, or in the 70s even, it was the Red Scare, right? It was a nuclear Armageddon.
Not when we were 7, Mike, it wasn't.
No. But, that's like the genesis point. So it kind of starts there, but it's a slippery slope, right? So now we've reached a point where the climate's going to kill you in 10 years, or now it's another 10 years, and then it's another 10 years. At some point it's going to happen, It's just fear porn. It's fear mongering. It's just... Fear's an easy way to indoctrinate or control people.
Right, but when the Cold War fear, the worst, we had to do those drills, right? We
yeah,
had to do the
hide under your desk or whatever.
They weren't telling us that when you're 18, you're going to have to go out and fight Russians. They weren't
right.
telling us that the world's going to come to an end. They were still letting us be children,
right,
and not have to worry about everything. There was no reason for an 8-year-old to learn about climate change, transgender issues, any of these things.
I think they're absolutely age inappropriate and they're absolutely ridiculous. But again,
even if, like I said, people think they're moral, I'm not even arguing the morality of it.
Take the morality out of it. Listen, freedom is freedom. You live your life how you want to live your life. That's what America's based on. That's what it should be. And I'm not trying to vilify any group or person and say that they can't live the way they want to live. Live the way you want to live. Your rights end when they infringe upon another. Pushing this nonsense in schools is A, taking away education time.
Yes.
It's B, creating an environment where you're putting a massive amount of pressure and anxiety into children who don't even understand what those things are, how to properly deal with them.
Yes.
And C, it's just stupid and counterproductive. It's almost, to me, honestly, it's almost evil. Like somebody gets off on like making these kids so terrified, so scared, and so like indoctrinated in stupidity. I see it as indoctrination. I really do. Just because when I look at it, and I look where it stems from. I look at it, things like, okay, what is the machine meant to do, right? So what is this meant to do? Is it meant to make them aware of environmental concerns? Is it make them aware of the world around them? Or is it meant to make them, believe a certain thing so that at a certain point they'll still believe a certain thing and they'll go a certain way? And to me, the machine, the end process of the machine is the intent, right? So we could say, we make this machine and it's supposed to make, kids more resilient. But when it's making all kids more mentally ill, the point is to make them mentally ill. I don't think there's
maybe.
I don't think there's any, Occam's razor, right? The simplest answer is usually the most correct one. I think you have very, very flawed people, very mentally ill people, and very just downright evil people in the halls of power in the country. And it doesn't matter if it's left, right, whatever. I don't think there's really a difference at this point. But I think that they're very much in charge, and they're very much inflicting this upon the world, upon us.
Well, I think there's a power. Yeah, like you said. I mean, teachers have power over children.
Absolutely,
right?
They do. Without a doubt. Tremendous amount of power.
And you have a captive audience.
Of course.
And the children can't get up and leave.
Right.
So anybody with any sort of narcissistic, that was easy to get out, tendencies, that's a great job for you, right? Because maybe the world doesn't pay attention to you in your real life, but now you have this group of 30 kids in front of you, and they must. They have to pay attention to you, and they have to listen to you. And I never understood for the life of me why a teacher would ever want to talk about their personal life to a kid, whether it's expressing your sexuality or anything. Because remember when we were kids, you always wanted to find out the teacher's first name, like that was some sort of a big deal.
It was
right?
a big mystery game. Oh, who's this?
If you found out their name, right? Because you're finding out something a little personal about this teacher. Now you don't have to worry about it because the teachers are open and honest about everything, and it just doesn't make any sense. It's
inappropriate. Listen, there's a certain amount of professionalism that used to be in our systems, in our government, in our professions, and everything, right? So I mean, if you rewind back and you go back even to the 70s, right? Gas stations had attendants that wore a uniform. You had people worked in the supermarket wore a uniform, and they had this kind of regimented society where people had their roles and they took their roles seriously and they were very good at what they did. But over time, that became degraded, more degraded, to the point now where we have just this kind of slapshod, ramshackle system of nonsense where everybody just kind of does whatever the hell they want to do. And that's infected in a lot of really storied traditions. So like teachers, even like the medical system and stuff like that. Look how many mistakes you see now. I think it comes back to just bad leadership. I think as Americans, and regardless of what side you are politically, and this is just the God's honest truth, as Americans, we want to live our lives. We want to raise our family. We want to spend time with our friends. We want to do things we like to do. We work. We come home. The last thing we want to do is sit here and have to, read constantly about politics or this politician or find the right candidate or whatever it is. But what happens is when we don't do those things, we're not watching, the hen house, so to speak. The foxes do get in, and now there's no real hens left and there's all foxes in there and they're just tearing everything apart.
But I just don't understand, again, when the evidence is there, that we have an enormous amount of children who can't read at grade level, can't do math at grade level, and we're not making any change. And like I said, the mental illness, I don't want to keep saying the same thing over and over again, but it bothers me.
Yeah.
Why you wouldn't want to make a change. We keep talking about how we have to, we talk about this in our foreign policy videos, we're eventually going to have to go to war with China because they're doing this, that, and the other thing. Why not just beat them? Right? Why not just be better than them? Why not do what they do and have our children study in school the way their children study in school? Have our family structure the way of the way they have their family structure? Why hate them? How about emulate them?
Because we have people in charge that absolutely detest everything about that. Right? Meritocracy is a bad word on the left, right? That's a curse word. It's a four-letter word to the left. Meritocracy. Oh, that's just awful. It's racist. It's sexist. It's whatever is that they need to make it bad in the moment, right? So meritocracy can never happen. And the nuclear family, to them, is an absolute abomination, much like Christians and everything else. These people don't want moral government. They don't want a moral society. They want this hot mess of a society where people just do whatever they want to do. But the reality is that look what it's created, right? We have generations of kids. You're right, absolutely right. The mental illness crisis. We have an opioid crisis. We have all these crises for these kids. Look at the 90s, right? In the 90s, it was this big thing about ADHD with kids, and we were shoving meds down their throat constantly.
Yeah, sure.
Kids weren't allowed to be kids. If the kid actually said something or acted out in any way, oh, nope, gotta go to the doctor now and get you meds and pump you full and make you a zombie.
Well, that's kind of what was in that article, right? Is that
it's disgusting.
This kid's coming from Denmark, and his first thing when he sees the snow coming down is to make a snowball and throw it. Like
he's playing, he's being a kid.
Every kid in history wanted to be, right? But now we make these kids so afraid of everything. No, you're going to get hurt. It's a fucking snowball, for crying out loud.
If you do get hurt, how many bumps and bruises have you had?
Plenty. And again, I'm not saying we shouldn't keep kids safe. You do, but
there's reasonable though. But
yes.
There's a reasonableness to it that
yes.
Listen.
You don't let them go run out into traffic.
It depends on the kid. Maybe no kid. No, look. You know what? There's a reasonableness to it, right? Am I letting the kids jump off the roof with wings? No, absolutely not. But if they really want to experience something like that, would I take them to those places where they have the air, fan, the skydive thing where you could kind of float and pretend like? Absolutely, I would do that. That's a great adventure, But let them be kids. That's how they learn. That's how they develop that imagination and that problem-solving ability that they need.
And part of being
adults.
a kid too is having respect for adults. And you see parents now all the time, which drives me crazy. Don't you want to put your jacket on? Don't you think you're going to be cold?
Oh yeah, they're requesting.
Put the fucking jacket on the kid.
Yeah, no.
That's it. Tell them you're the boss. You put the jacket on them. Again, it confuses kids. Kids cannot make these decisions. Kids should not be deciding what they're going to eat for dinner.
No.
Whether or not they have to wear a jacket if it's cold out. What they're going to do in school. So it's two things. One, we want them to play. We want them to have a good time. You want them to grow up that way too. But they also have to know that there are rules and there's somebody in charge. Because these are the kids that grow up, and we see what's happening with them now as they're becoming adults.
Oh yeah.
They don't want rules.
Yeah, they don't want rules, and they want to just live life on my terms. No, you're an idiot. Stop it. You're weak people. Just stop. Listen, I can't stand the weakness. But like the Gen Z generation coming up now, right? If you look at a lot of the elements and the things they're talking about, right? What are they inheriting? And they're inheriting a tremendous amount of mess, right? They have a housing market that's so overinflated and so absolutely disgusting that the likelihood of them ever owning a home is slim to none. Which is, that's a hell of a thing to be facing when you're 18, 20 years old.
It is.
To know that, you're going to have to do some extraordinary things to be able to even just do the basic things that we
especially
did.
for the ones who did study hard in school and did try to do the right thing.
They're spending how much? The student loans drive me crazy, right? The student loan market, to me, is 10 times worse than the payday loan scams, right? Remember those? The payday loan scam is like 600% interest or something like that. Yeah. Those were absolutely horrible. And our Congress, the Senate, everybody, they went after it. They made laws. They got rid of it. They kind of shut down that industry because it was predatory lending, right? Absolutely. 2008 mortgage crisis, predatory lending again. Yes, absolutely. It got dealt with, kind of, not really, but different subject. But the idea is this: we don't do anything to protect them where they really should be protected, and we do everything to protect them from things that they should actually go experience and learn. So it's backwards. You're absolutely right. It's backwards.
But I have a different take on the whole student loan thing because I'm sorry. I've met people who took out $100,000 in debt and became a school teacher or a cop or something like that.
Yeah, no, I know cops like that.
You're an idiot.
I agree.
You're an absolute idiot. Because
no, I agree.
I don't know about every state, but I know here in New York State, we have a wonderful state university system.
Yeah, it's good.
There are campuses all over the place. You do not have to go dorm. It's relatively cheap. We have good city college. I went to city college. I worked in a pizzeria and worked my way through college. The people who go into debt are going into debt because they want to be able to say that their kid went to UCLA or their kid went to Notre Dame.
Right.
And there's just no reason for it. If you can afford it, God bless you, go. If you get a scholarship, God bless you, go. But if you have to take out $70, $80, $100, $120,000 in debt, and there's a good college down the road from you, I don't feel bad for you. and I don't feel bad enough to where we should be forgiving these loans.
No.
And,
No.
You know,
No,
you
it's
say
your
that
loan.
they're predatory, and I guess in a way they are, but
Yeah,
but
one
we're not
aspect.
talking. Payday loans target poor people. Okay, so I think that's a different thing. The payday loans target poor people. Those are predatory. They put people even more in debt, and they get into that cycle. The people who are going into debt to go to college are middle class, upper middle class. There's no need. So they can avoid those loans very easily by just saying to their kid, sorry, you're not going to Florida to go to school. You're going to Westbury right over here, and you're going to get just as good of an education.
I agree with you. The payday loan thing, the way I'm trying to phrase it, and the predatory aspect of it that I'm speaking about, is not, listen, I don't think any loan forgiveness is right. No, you took out the loan, that's on you. Learn some responsibility.
Yeah.
Put on your big girl pants or big boy pants and suck it up. You took it on, you got to deal with it. That's your debt. Deal with your debt. That's what you did to yourself. That said, the way the loans are structured by these companies, by the ones who run these loans,
Yeah, you're never
is
getting out of it.
absolutely predatory, right? It's completely backwards. It doesn't. They're
I know.
designed to keep you in debt forever.
Yes, they are. But
So
again,
that's
we're
my
talking
that's
about
my problem with it. But overall, but you're right.
these are not people who went into debt to eat, though.
no, not
These
at
are
all.
people
And
who went into debt just to say they
to get
went
a
to a
gender
certain
studies
school.
degree or some other
You know,
nonsense degree, it's going to
Right, and again, you know, if you're going to be an engineer or you're going to be a doctor or some sort of a job where you have a chance to pay these things off,
sure.
fine. But other than that, to get a city job like you and I had,
No.
and go into that, I mean, you're going to start at $50,000 a year, and you're in debt for $100,000,
Yeah.
and like you said, that's going to build up. No, I'm sorry, I don't feel bad for you.
You know, listen. You don't go get a journalism degree for St. John's, or you don't go to someplace like CW Post or whatever, and spend all this money to get this very advanced degree to just go be a cop in Brooklyn or to go be a teacher in Queens. Like that's just it's just bad. It's just bad all around.
But this is the entitlement that these kids are learning
But
right
that's
from the
just
very
it
beginning.
because that's what they're learning from a young age.
Right.
And the parents are enabling that because that's what they've been doing the entire time.
Well,
They've been
because
enabling it.
it's a status symbol for the parent, right? They wear the T-shirt and the sweatshirt that says
And here
I'm
we go.
a Harvard dad or
And
something.
here we come back to the biggest problem I think in America today, culturally.
Parenting.
No, virtue signaling. Everything comes back to virtue signals, right? Think about it. Social media is all about virtue signaling, right? And that has infected every aspect of American culture, right? The Hollywood media, whatever is media, Hollywood, whatever medium you're talking about in that regard, it's all virtue signal. It's all about oh, look at me, look what I did. Oh, look what my kid did. My kid
Sure.
went to UCLA, Harvard, Yale, whatever, right? But with Vance, when Vance was selected, one of the first things I heard from across the spectrum in media was, "Oh, he's a Yale Law graduate, whatever." And I'm like,
Who gives a fuck?
exactly. I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
What is he advocating for? What does he want to do? What has he done already? Tell me about his successes. Tell me what he's done before. But most importantly, tell me what the hell he plans to do, because that's what I'm most worried about.
Listen, I'm all for scholarships, especially to help poorer kids get an
Sure,
education.
absolutely. Get them
As
an
long as
assist-
they meet the grades, as long as they have
Yeah,
the
putting the
grades
work
for it,
in, yeah.
put the work in,
Earn it.
Those
Yeah.
sorts of things are fine. But again, if somebody wants to take that loan, I'm not going to tell anybody what to do. Fine, but
Their life. But it's a
don't
bad
come
idea.
to me and ask my tax dollars to bail your ass out.
No, exactly. You shouldn't be. Listen, nobody should be getting any kind of bailout. I don't like corporate bailouts any more than I like student loan bailouts. I don't like either one of them. I think it's ridiculous that taxpayer money. Listen, first of all, Americans pay way too much in taxes as it is for nothing in return. Right? The return on investment for our taxes is completely lopsided and all kinds of screwed up. We're sending billions of dollars to Ukraine, billions of dollars to other countries that hate us and provide nothing for us here. Like there's nothing coming back to us that we need from those places.
And we have such a disinterested population, and this goes back to what we were saying about schooling. They're not teaching kids to think as much as they should, and that's why we have a generation of adults out there that just doesn't think. They're like, oh, we're helping Ukraine, we're flying the Ukraine flag, fine. But they don't look into it. And listen, if you look into it and find that you think differently than I do, fine. We could have that debate.
Absolutely.
But look into it, for crying out loud. At
Speak
least
about honesty.
understand.
Speak about
Know what the history is. Know what's going on in this world. But we don't push children enough, in my opinion, from what I've seen in schools, to think, just to come to wonder. It's just more of a lecture, and we're telling them this is how bad the world is and scaring the shit out of them, inflating grades. It's a mess. Our education system's a mess. Our family structure's a mess. And I just want to say one thing before you chime in there, I see you're ready to. But the problem, I think, a lot of times with people like us, from our points of view, is that we look, again, to what we were talking about, a savior president. That electing Donald Trump's going to change. Electing Donald Trump will not change one thing that we were just talking about. These are things that have to be solved by people. This is a cultural issue. Donald Trump cannot make people stay married. Donald Trump cannot make people raise their kids a certain way. Donald Trump cannot do those, and no president can. Ronald Reagan can't. George Washington can't. And that, I think, is where our side has a problem, is that we keep looking to some sort of a political person to save us.
Yeah.
When really we should be more focusing on what we could do. And I think one of the things we could do is stop being so ashamed of who we are. Tell people, no, we're a family unit. I'm not talking about you and me. I'm talking about just in general.
Oh, you just outed us.
Tell people, we do believe in a family unit. We do believe in going to church on Sundays.
Absolutely.
And that doesn't mean you have to.
No,
but know that I'm here. And know that I have a right to shape society the way I want to also. You do as well. And you say what you like, you say what you want to do. But I think sometimes we're too shy, and we feel like we're stepping on other people by telling them that we think we're living well.
Because people clutch pearls. They're like, oh, well, I don't want to offend anyone, or I want to be the nice guy, right? Everyone wants to be the nice person, right? And like during my campaign, right, I did my best, to kind of stay out of the mudslinging, stay out of the dirty side of it. And then towards the end, that kind of came out anyway. It was like you just couldn't avoid it. But I did my best to stay out of that because I wanted to stay on the issues. I wanted to talk about issues. I didn't care about...
Yeah, but you had a very good reason for getting into the mud, Mike. They attacked your family.
And they did, and they got their dose. And I can go 10 times harder if I had to, but, I did what I had to do. But at the end of the day, political campaigns should be about the issues. It shouldn't be about me personally necessarily. Unless I'm like some kind of like crazy dirtbag or something like that, Menendez corrupt or whatever, then maybe bring it out. But realistically, it should be just about the issues. But we can't go to the issues because everybody wants a virtue signal or they're too afraid to speak out. And the first thing that I always heard was like, people would reach out to me. I had so many people reaching out to me, from all different sectors, politicians, other people that were very supportive. They would talk about things that bothered them. They would talk about things they were worried about, but these are things they would never speak about publicly. And they would say that all the time. I can't really talk about this in the open, but...
Why not?
And that was my answer. Why not? Why aren't you? Because if you did, and more people did, we wouldn't have this issue anymore. We'd be able to actually kind of address it at a very, very, ground-based level, like right down here. Because that's where change happens, right? Your change... Listen, I'm all for Trump. I'm a MAGA guy. I love Trump. I voted for him, twice already. I'm going to vote for him a third time. But, he's not the end-all, be-all of fixing all this stuff. He is a big piece of that puzzle, but he's just a piece of that puzzle. It's up to us. It's up to me, you, Rick, all of us to get out and actually do those things. So run for school board, run for local office, because we have to take every position from dog catcher back to president to really turn this thing around. And your local election has the most impact. But even beyond the elections, go to your school board meetings. You don't have to be violent, you don't have to threaten anybody, and you don't have to have the gotcha moment that you film for Facebook or any of that crap like that. Just go there and speak honestly and plainly about, listen, we don't like this, we don't like that, Do we have to teach the Bible in school? Might help a bit. I think it would probably help a lot of the moral problems, but that's fine. We could leave that out of the schools because of separation, whatever. But at the end of the day, we also don't need to teach the other side's Bible, right? Their ideology stuff that's being pushed onto very young children that's very inappropriate for them. Those are concepts that can be explored later on as they go on through middle school and in high school when they have a little more maturity and emotional ability to kind of understand and maybe start exploring those concepts. If that's something they want to bring up there, I kind of get it. I may not agree with it, but I understand it. So, that said, there's easy ways that we can fix this. Not to say it's an easy task to fix it, I'm just saying the actual ways are easy. In other words, stand up. Stand up, speak up, get involved. That's it. Stop hiding, stop being afraid, stop being worried about what people are going to say to you or about you. I gave up my career, Lauren gave up her career, and, we took huge financial hits to run that campaign and continue doing what we're doing. But it was the right thing to do, and we did it mostly for our family, because we want to remain a family. We want our kids to grow up in a country they can actually be proud of, in a country that actually makes sense. It's collapsing from within right now because of this corrupted, this cultural rot that we have where the family units are falling apart. You know, people are just doing whatever they want. There's this very, very entitled, like very lazy.
My point
generation.
was that I think we fall into the same trap and look to politics to help. You know, just like the people, you know, our friends who were more on the left thought Obama was going to be a savior and all
hope and change, right? Yeah,
and I think too many on this side believe the same thing about Trump. These are problems that are not political problems. These are problems that are social problems. They're cultural problems. And until people start speaking up
and having these conversations,
stop being ashamed of who you are. They're not ashamed of who they are.
No,
you know, not. There's no reason to be ashamed that
that's the whole point of their movement, right? Is to
that
push
you're
it out
a traditional family that believes in traditional values. You have a place in this world too. You know,
very much so. Listen, you know,
we got here from a snowball, by the way.
From a snowball, ladies and gentlemen. It's a hell of a show, right? You know, they're pushing their agenda, right? They're out everywhere, and it's a very small group of people. This is not a very, even progressives make up less than 8% of the Democrat Party. You know, if you're going to break it down in numbers, it's a very, very small minority of that particular, you know, political subgroup or whatever. But they're so loud, right, that they seem like they're everywhere. The vast majority of people, even people on the so-called left, Democrats or whatever, are just centrist people they're basically just trying to live their lives. They want to raise their families and live their lives.
Yes.
You know, they want whatever they want. They might be a one-issue voter. They might be, you know, invested in certain aspects of things, so they lean one way or the other for that reason. But at the end of the day, they want more or less the same things, right? When people raise your family, live a decent life, you know.
On a nice farm.
Yeah, on a nice farm, you know. But you can't do that now because it's been hijacked by these crazies, you know. You can't let the fringe minority of any society rule over everything else because you're just going to have all kinds of backwards things, and I think that's what we're seeing now.
And those crazies start by telling children, don't throw a snowball, it's a weapon.
That's exactly right.
And that's where we started.
Let your kids be kids.
My God, let them have fun. Mike, we're getting up here. You want to wrap it up?
Yeah.
Want to say goodbye to those nice people out there?
You guys, you have a great night. It's always great to be here. We love it. We actually really enjoy doing this. Hopefully you're enjoying it as much as we are.
Right down there. Where is it? Down there? Is that where you
Somewhere
comment?
in there, Somewhere in there. Go ahead and throw your
comments in. Let us have it. Tell us how stupid we are about what we just said, and we'll get back to you. Remember, if you're one of our early subscribers, one of the OGs here on the Dirt Road, you're going to get some real good perks when this thing gets big.
We'll see what kind of perks those are. But thanks, guys. Everybody, like, subscribe, share the videos.
Comment.
We'll see you on the next one.
Down there, comment.
Good night.
Good night.